When I was filling out the application for the Wendy's High School Heisman Award, I didn't really know that much would come.
It's teamwork. You communicate with...
What that involves is making sure I communicate and coordinate with each of the guidance departments.
We're building a ramp for someone who really
Don't
can't...
give up just because it's hard, because I had a lot of times where I thought I wasn't going to make it.
All right, hi, welcome to Hometown Heroes. I'm your host, Andy Kitzrow. Today, I've got Justin Marcarelli with us. He's going to be talking a little about what he's been doing since the last time we chatted a few years ago. So, Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, good for having me.
So, Justin, it's been a little bit of time since we've last spoken. Tell me about what has been going on with you over the last few years and how you're managing, COVID.
Yeah, no, lots going on. So I went to college at NC State, so moved down to Raleigh, North Carolina. Started fall of 2012. Managed to graduate in 3 years. So I finished up spring of 2015. Immediately rolled into a graduate of accounting program at the University of Connecticut. So I finished that spring of 2016. Got my CPA license 2 years after that in 2018. First full-time job was working in public accounting for a small firm in Delaware after I'd moved away once I graduated from NC State. Since have moved back down to North Carolina for the past 2 years or so, currently working for the Carolina Hurricanes hockey team and PNC Arena. So a lot of events going on in normal times when I first started. Obviously due to COVID, it's not the best time to be in the sports and entertainment world. Fortunately for me in the accounting role, I've survived a lot of furloughs and other stuff that a lot of the country have had to endure. But kind of plugging through, kind of waiting for things to get back to normal. Hopefully the vaccine's successful and we can get back to having to concerts and hockey games and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate all that information. My ears did perk up when you said NC State Wolfpack. I don't know if you know, I'm a Chapel Hill grad. So,
oh, is that right?
yeah. So I like you, but also don't like you. No, but it's cool. So I know the Durham, Raleigh area, Chapel Hill area really well. I graduated there in 2005. Spent a couple, few days over at NC State. Had some friends that were local North Carolinians that we would all hang out, kind of go back and forth between the two campuses. So it was great.
Very cool.
So tell me a little bit about that transition. Let's go back to that. You went off, if you can remember back then, it was a while ago, kind of moving away from high school and into kind of that college life. Easy transition for you? Kind of difficult? Did it in 3 years, so you ready to get moving?
Pros and cons, I think, as with anything. I knew when I was looking around at colleges that I wanted to go out of state. I wanted a new experience and something different. I didn't want to be too far from home, so I thought North Carolina was a good place where I could, take a day trip and get back to Salisbury, if I needed to stay in birth. But I've always considered myself an independent person, so I think that part kind of came naturally to me. I didn't mind having the additional responsibilities of making sure I'm getting to all my classes and completing all my assignments. I was working while I was in school too, so kind of just time management was very critical for me as it was in high school. So in a lot of ways, it was kind of familiar as far as I was pretty busy in high school and kind of continued on in college. That being said, it definitely was an adjustment, kind of everything falling on my plate, and first time in my life at that point where everything was completely up to me. If I was successful, it was because of the work I put in. If I wasn't successful, it's I didn't try hard enough for or something. So yeah, but overall, I think it was a good experience for me.
Did you, from the beginning, always think about accounting, or did you kind of stumble into that because of math background and other stuff, or what was that? How'd you go that direction?
Happy accident, I guess. So I actually took an accounting class at Y-High and absolutely loved it. And it seemed like a lot of the other classmates I had seemed to struggle with those concepts and principles. And so I feel like that was kind of my calling at that point, where it was my value added to the community. And, ever since that class, just kind of stuck with it and kind of looked at it as a stable option, kind of ever the realist. I could work wherever for any company, any industry. So it kind of opened up a lot of doors for me in that sense. And obviously, the CPA route kind of followed, kind of logically after that. But everyone I've talked to who's been in the accounting field has said that the CPA is kind of mandatory to kind of progress in that world. So it's just kind of a logical for me.
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm going to come back to this in a second, but thinking about the new world within COVID and the idea of remote working, teleworking of sorts, and you might have one of those positions where it doesn't matter where you are, even in the world, to do some of the work that you do. I like North Carolina. Have you ever thought about, with COVID, if the opportunity presented itself, would you telework permanently and move to Hawaii and then just work for whatever company hired you, or are you kind of like being like right where you're working too?
I definitely fell in love with the area. Like I said, so I'm currently living in Raleigh, North Carolina, and obviously went to school at NC State. So I've been in the area for a couple of years. Had a break after I graduated, but made my way back down here. So I think the fact that I've chosen to live down here twice is a good sign that this is kind of the place to be. I actually recently bought a house in May, so I'm kind of financially committed to sticking around the area a little bit. I was working from home starting in March of 2020 when everything kind of shut down. Very recently, the beginning of this year was the first time I started coming back to the office more regularly. I think from my experience, I hated working from home. I liked having the social interaction and dealing with coworkers kind of face to face and having more personal connections that way. Because there's a lot of lonely days where I live by myself. I don't have any pets. So it definitely can take a toll on you over time. But fortunately, it seems like things are kind of, trending in the right direction, and I'm happy to be back in the arena for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely for the people who are just coming out of school, and the people who are just entering the workplace for the first time this year, are still relatively new to it. I mean, it is not what work has typically been like. Where I work, we've had several people who joined our team mid-COVID. And they're like, I don't really know anybody. I'm kind of like living in this isolated, remote world. So just trying to figure out ways to have people stay connected. And I think as things continue to open up, and there's that piece of just being around people. I think that I won't say we took it for granted, but people do appreciate it. And I'm the type of person who I telework right now, but I crave like, can we hang out? Can I be around you? Yeah. Like I'm looking for some of that social interaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You went back down to Raleigh. I've always, before I got married, I was about right around 30. I almost made that jump career. I was like, I'm going to go back down to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Raleigh. I had some friends still in the Durham area. Like that hub, that triangle, that's where I was going. Or maybe migrating west to Charlotte, being a Panthers fan and stuff, or Canes. I was thinking maybe we'll go that direction. So now that you're in North Carolina and you're working in a professional sports franchise, knowing that you have a sports background, how cool is that to be around it while also doing something that you're really good at? What's that feel like?
A dream situation for me, to be honest. When I first got interested in accounting, never in a million years did I think I would be working for a sports and entertainment franchise. And the fact that I can say this is actually my second team that I've worked for kind of blows my mind too. So before I was working with the Hurricanes, and I guess what kind of led to the Hurricanes opportunity, I was working for DC United soccer team in MLS. So I think once the interesting thing with sports entertainment is once you have that background and experience, it opens up a lot of doors, even across other sports, just because it's such a unique industry and a very tight-knit community of connections and networking that kind of goes on. Like I noticed on my LinkedIn page when I started adding coworkers from DC United, and all of a sudden it's just people from other teams, and just kind of takes over from there. So really crazy that it's kind of worked out this way.
Right. What's funny, I guess you kind of know some of the professional athletes more on an intimate level. Like I know how much they're getting paid. I know how they're No, that's pretty cool.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah.
So looking kind of, so that brings you up to current. I'm looking back when we started talking, years ago, and some of the stuff that you did kind of growing up, playing youth sports and being involved and volunteering. You got the sports thing. It kind of stayed with you. It sounds like being able to be around sports in the professional world. What about kind of that service mindset or that volunteering? Have you been able to keep up with some of that passion?
Yeah, absolutely. So before everything shut down with COVID, I had been coaching a youth soccer team through the YMCA for a couple of years. I was under 6 and under 8 leagues, which was an incredible experience for me, especially with my youth sports background. I thought that was a very important way for me to give back to the community, knowing the impact that had on me growing up. In addition to that, kind of stumbled into another volunteer opportunity where I was volunteering at an animal shelter. Just happened to drive past it on the way home from work one day and kind of looked more into it and saw that they needed volunteers. So it was about an hour a week or so. Really wasn't much time commitment, no dollar commitment or anything. But just a little way to give back. Like I said, I don't have any pets, so that was a good way for me to kind of get my pet interaction, especially once things shut down and I was working from home and wanted to have some socialization of some kind, even if it was just with some animals. But definitely both have been positive experiences for me.
That's great. So we're talking with Justin Marcarelli here on Hometown Heroes Pack 14. And we're just catching up on his life as a CPA working for the Hurricanes, Carolina Hurricanes professional hockey team. So what have you learned, I guess, kind of about yourself now that you're a professional, you're in this independent arena, kind of, you got friends and stuff, but what has this whole experience kind of been like going through the professional part and now being on your own?
I've always been the planner type. So I feel like, not that I foresaw this particular situation working out for me, but I definitely imagined myself being successful in whatever I was doing because I knew I had a plan for myself and I knew that I would put in the time and effort it took to be successful in these things. So I think the way I've kind of grown a little bit is more socially, I think I'd say. I think when I was in high school, I was a little bit more withdrawn and kind of less sure of myself. I think now that I'm in the professional world and I have, have a master's degree, the CPA license, I think kind of gives me more credibility to the things I say, especially in a professional environment. So I know that when I'm talking that people are willing to listen because, this is my area of expertise and my opinion does matter and make a difference. So just having that more confidence, I think, the biggest adjustment for me.
That's great. You've said it a couple of times now, this idea of you had a plan, you executed that plan, you're able to move forward. So, and it sounds like you knew like you needed kind of a path forward to a certain degree early on. So that helped you, that accounting class, like this is my path forward and you've been able to think through it and it's helped you get to where you want. So talking to other people who may be in that high school arena or that thing that think like, I'll just figure it out as I go. Why is it important to have kind of at least some sort of plan or some roadmap to keep moving forward?
Right. I think for me, have benchmarks. I think, people talk about with New Year's resolutions and stuff, it's easy to say this grandiose idea of like, this is what I want to do. Here's my end result. But I think a lot of people overlook the steps it takes to get there. And I think for me, it's good to have kind of incremental steps where I can see, am I on the right track? Am I getting closer to where I want to be, not necessarily, pass or fail kind of situation. I will say that as much of a planner as I am and as much as I want to kind of micromanage every aspect, it's been important for me to kind of let go of the reins a little bit and kind of take things as they come. And the best example of that for me is when I graduated NC State, moved away from Raleigh, only to absolutely the area, just kind of life circumstances and different things got in the way of what I thought was going to be my path. Only 2 years ago at this point, had the opportunity to come back down to Raleigh to work for the Hurricanes and kind of came full circle in that sense. But it took me leaving Raleigh for me to come back and get the job that ultimately was, would have been my dream job that never would have been possible probably had I stayed here to begin with. So I've learned to just kind of roll with the punches and, things have a tendency of working themselves out on their own time and just kind of being patient and paying my dues and making the best of every situation was the best way I could get through it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny you brought that up. I wouldn't say you took the words out of my mouth, but this idea of paying your dues. So, I don't know if you know, I'm the deputy city administrator with the city of Salisbury. I've been doing that about 3.5 years. So I see things at the very top end of the conversation. And when I talk with department heads or even, supervisors in the middle management level, talking about like the new team members that are coming on, them already wanting to be the director day one. They want to do this. They want to be at the top, but they haven't paid any dues. They haven't been patient. They haven't worked their way or had benchmarks. Like, I want that. I want to be the CPA for the Carolina Hurricanes when I'm 22 years old. You're like, well, time out. Maybe not. So it is interesting to bring that up. So how do you, how do you instill that in people? Your friends or coworkers or, who, maybe someone's watching this, or you're like, hey, take bite-sized, small steps. Keep going forward. Like, what do you say?
Yeah.
We already started talking about it, but maybe dive in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I think there's good to have a foundational level of understanding before you can get to the top level of things. I'm going to use my current job as an example. When I first started working here, my main responsibilities were on anything PNC Arena related. So anything food service, parking, merchandise, any events that were happening within the arena was my responsibility. And then there was another person who was solely responsible for the Carolina Hurricanes hockey team specifically, which would include any like their travel and stuff that would happen outside the arena. So with my role, actually just recently switched a couple weeks ago. So now I'm specifically on the hockey side. And when I first started, there's a lot of things that were happening on the arena level that would translate to the hockey level and vice versa, where it kind of go back and forth, that without understanding the other piece of it, you really don't see the whole picture. So of course I wanted to be on the hockey side, like I love being in sports. But had I not had the arena background and understand, this is all the expenses and kind of where revenues are generated this way that kind of feed into the hurricane side of things, definitely has made my job now having that background information. So I don't look at any opportunity as a wasted opportunity, even though it might not be what I want at this exact moment. There's still something to be learned from it and something you can apply later on that might make you more successful in what you really want to do, so that when you finally are presented with the opportunity to be in the position that you really want to be in, you have this background knowledge and understanding of what it takes to be successful in it.
I may just take this quote that you just said right there and just share that video to the people who work for me. So I'm like, see, he knows, he gets it. You gotta go through this process. It's not a wasted opportunity. I know you want your boss's job, but just learn from what you're doing right now and gather.
All in due time.
Yeah, right. And suck up all that stuff. I want to skip back. I know we're jumping around a little bit. DC United, MLS.
Yeah.
And the Wayne Rooney signing and some of that other stuff. Knowing that, knowing soccer was a passion of yours. I'm not sure if hockey was, but knowing soccer was something that you kind of grew up around and helped coach.
Absolutely. Being
in that arena around, like maybe I wanted to play on that field at one time, but maybe I don't get to play in the field, but I get to be in it. And what's that like?
Very surreal, I think, for me. Obviously, going up a Wayne Rooney fan and him being one of the top soccer players in the world, being there for that signing, I was in the finance department when we brought him on, and it was seeing kind of behind the scenes of the contract negotiations and everything that goes into what the final product sees. Him, it's just fascinating to me. While I was there, we also opened up a brand new stadium, Audi Field, transitioning from the old RFK Stadium. So that was a massive undertaking and something I never thought I'd be exposed to. And I think kind of fortunate timing wise how that worked out, because it's not very often that professional, stadiums and arenas are being built. So to be able to see that kind of from the ground floor, when I first got there, it was just kind of steel girders in the ground, and to see it through all the way to, July 14th, when they first had that first game and got to be in attendance, and just incredible feeling. And like you said, I'm not on the field, still being kind of part of the team and being part of the end product that people are enjoying.
Cool. So it sounds like you had a really good NC State undergraduate experience, because you're back down there right now. You've had a couple really cool jobs, but you had this detour to UConn for a little bit. Let's talk about being there and what that process was like, and if that was more the low of the peaks and valleys of your professional career, or was there things that you still enjoyed? It's a lot different from there and here.
Like I said, it definitely got me to where I am now. So I'm appreciative of those opportunities. The interesting thing with the University of Connecticut is that degree was 100% online, which actually is probably more relevant today than it was at that time, as far as understanding what people are going through. And I was kind of glad I had that experience, because now I can sympathize a lot more with what people are going through now and kind of the unique challenges that online learning can present. So I was working full time. I was living in Delaware at the time while I was going through the UConn program. So balancing that was kind of interesting. I guess relative to where I'm at now, obviously I enjoy what I'm doing now tremendously. But again, I think all of those steps were leading up to this point. And if it weren't for, having the master's degree, and going through that program and the jobs I had in between, like that was all just preparing me for where I'm getting to now. And so like I obviously wouldn't change that for anything.
So one common theme you keep talking about is kind of like this, it is advanced education, but just the borderline, the underlying tone is just, education, additional education that you need to have to open doors or to not have doors closed in your face. So, you've got some people who are maybe on that fence who are graduating, like, maybe I don't need to go get a degree, period. Things have changed fast enough. I don't need to do it. I don't need to get an advanced degree, but it seems like there's still enough of a need to get, especially if we get into a professional arena, like while you're still young, go get, do what you need to get done and then see what opens up. So I guess the question is, how would you tell people the importance of education beyond high school?
For me, it was absolutely critical. I know with the role that I'm in now, even though I'm not in an accounting field, just by nature of being in an accounting, the CPA license is, kind of mandatory, like I said before. And one of the requirements of the CPA license is to have 150 credit hours, post-secondary education. So for me, that was, the undergrad and master's degree. So for me, it was a pretty obvious transition of why I need to do this, with the CPA license being the ultimate goal. But I think for even like my coworkers, pretty much all of them have, at least an undergrad degree of some kind. And it seems like that's just been the trend of a lot of positions requiring that to just even get foot in the door at this point. That being said, I do think there's a lot of like trade opportunities that I think get overlooked that, you could step in and make a lot of money right off the bat that, then you're not having student loans and all these other things too. So there's definitely different avenues you can be successful. It's just a matter of, again, having that plan for yourself and, where do you want to be in 5-10 years and, kind of working backwards from there of what steps do I need to take now that will get me to that point.
Awesome. I'm glad you brought that up. Education isn't everything. Like, you don't have to go to college to be successful and to have an opportunity. I think, we've heard a lot about your professional career. I want to go more and kind of finish up our conversation on Justin as the person, Justin as the coach for the little kids. Why is it important to continue to give back, even as you have this great professional career that, you could spend enough time just dealing with that, but carving out time to spend with, that next generation or just people in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, you said it's kind of grooming the next generation. I know that the impact on sports had on me, as far as teaching me dedication and teamwork and perseverance and learning how to, take your victories as well as your losses, kind of, rolling with the punches in that sense. So to be able to kind of, forward, move along with that and kind of give that back to the community is just seemed like a logical fit for me. I really enjoy being around soccer. I really enjoy, being around kids and kind of teaching them what I know. And I think what I've learned from coaching soccer, when I first started, I was looking at all these drills and different things I could teach them, like technical skills, and quickly realized that 6-year-olds are not, that's not what they're there for. And that there's a way I can be helpful to them outside of just teaching them, strictly soccer skills, where it's more life skills and interpersonal skills that are kind of formed at that age.
Yeah, sometimes just molding the individual kid to make them so passionate about that sport and want to continue down that pathway. When people think 6-year-olds are Wayne Rooney's, but they're not yet. Like, you got to get them
Definitely not
interested and still just wanting to be on the field. Hey, we kick the ball this way, guys. Still to a certain degree. So, I guess kind of the last question I have is, you're here now. What's next? What's next in your life, other than getting past COVID past us? But post-COVID world, what are we going to be talking about 5 years from now?
That's a great question. I think my next big step was one that already happened 2 weeks ago for me, with switching over to the hockey side and kind of continuing to develop that way. Hopefully in the next 5 years, I'll be moving into like a controller role where I'm managing other people. And kind of, heading the finance department myself. One other bit of good news I just had recently too is starting in the fall semester this year, I will be an adjunct professor for one of the graduate accounting certificate programs through the University of Connecticut because of my connection there. So another way to keep me busy, I guess, and kind of keep me sharp on my accounting skills, and I guess, in that way, giving back to kind of continuing that education for people, and especially in the online environment, I know that can be tough for people. And having been through that environment, I kind of know what helps and can be, how to be helpful to other people in those situations, and use my experiences to kind of make the program a better experience for them, like the people that were teaching me did for me.
That's great. Yeah, constant giving back, that evolution of like what you were taught, and then you can be that person that pay it forward kind of mentality.
Yep.
Justin, that's kind of all the questions I had. Is there anything else you wanted to just chat about or update us on while we got a couple minutes left?
I think I'm good. Just can't wait for everything to get back to normal. I know it's been a rough, year at this point for a lot of people, but I think I speak for everyone that we just want to get back to normal and kind of back to doing what everyone wants to do.
Well, if I ever make my way back down to North Carolina to see my friends, I'll definitely connect with you and see this new bachelor pad that you have moved into.
Absolutely.
And if you got any
Welcome
extra,
anytime.
yeah, you got any hurricane tickets laying around, just let me know, and I'll force me to come down there.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, but hey, I really appreciate talking with you today, and congratulations on all your success that you've had so far, and looking forward to hearing more about what's going on in the years to come.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So thank you, everybody, for watching Hometown Heroes here on Pack 14. If you'd like to nominate someone to be featured on Hometown Heroes, please contact George Whitehead at gihwhitehead@salisbury.edu or call 410-749-1480. Again, this is Hometown Heroes. I'm your host, Andy Kitzrow. Thanks for watching.
Application for the Wendy's High School Heisman Award. I didn't really know that much would come.
It's teamwork. You communicate with.
What that involves is making sure I communicate and coordinate with each of the guidance departments.
We're building a ramp for someone who really
Don't
can't
give up just because it's hard, because I had a lot of times where I thought I wasn't going to make it.